Welcome to the Cybersecurity event co-hosted by Center for New American Security and the Prospect Foundation. I'm Julia, your MC for today's event. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Vivek Chilukuri, Program Director and Senior Fellow of the Technology and National Security Program at Center for New American Security, to come to the podium to deliver the opening remarks. Please.
And thank you for joining us this afternoon. As our distinguished host said, my name is Vivek Chilukuri. I'm the Senior Fellow and Program Director for the Technology and National Security Program at the Center for New American Security. It's for those who aren't familiar, I know some of you joined us in the morning, so hopefully this won't be too repetitive, but it's a bipartisan national security think tank based in Washington, D.C. And we were very grateful to everybody who made the time to join us this afternoon. We have many distinguished experts and officials here who will be sharing their insights shortly. I'm going to keep this fairly brief. I want to thank our co-hosts for this event, the Prospect Foundation, and in particular Chairman Tan-Sun Chen and President Ai-Chung Lai for their hard work and partnership throughout this project. And just to get us started, I wanted to provide a little bit of context about why we wanted to organize this particular event. The Center for New American Security launched a new research project late last year focused on Indo-Pacific cybersecurity. And we did it because we sort of looked out on the horizon and viewed several trends converging that demanded more analysis and exploration. One is that you see rapid digitization in the Indo-Pacific with tremendous opportunities for the economy, but also risks for cybersecurity. We saw ambitions in Washington, Taipei, Manila, capitals across the region to deepen ties and unlock the benefits of closer cooperation for militaries and intelligence capabilities and obviously businesses. And obviously a dramatically evolving cybersecurity landscape with a more aggressive China, new threats from artificial intelligence, and ongoing and persistent threats from well-known actors like North Korea and Russia. So all of these converged, and we thought it would be very useful for us to be convening conversations like this. And this is the first of 4 conversations that we're organizing in the region. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be doing similar events in Tokyo, Manila, and Seoul. So that's a little bit of context about why we're here. Our program this afternoon has 2 parts. It'll begin with remarks from 2 distinguished speakers, Dr. Ya-Xiong Chen, the chairperson of Taiwan's National Communications Commission, and the Honorable Mr. Jeremy Cornforth, who's the deputy director of the American Institute in Taiwan. I'll introduce both of our speakers in turn, but I'll start with Mr. Ya-Xiong Chen, who has held many roles in government, academia, and law. He graduated with a Bachelor in Laws from National Taiwan University and earned 2 Master of Law degrees from Fujian Catholic University and the University of Heidelberg in Germany. Mr. Chen served as a lecturer at the National Academy of Civil Service, a legal committee member at the Defense Ministry, and later the Ministry of Culture. He's worked in the Information Office and later as an assistant professor at both the National Taipei University and Mingchuan University. Currently, Mr. Chen serves as commissioner at the National Communications Commission, a body established in 2006 responsible for regulating telecommunications and broadcasting services, and a member of Taiwan's Cybersecurity Iron Triangle, alongside the National Security Council and the Department of Cybersecurity. The Commission, of course, plays a leading role in ensuring secure and resilient telecommunications infrastructure, and Mr. Chen has been central to this work. So, Mr. Chen, we welcome your comments, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chairperson Chen, Program Director Mr. Chilukuri, Deputy Director of AIT Mr. Cornforth, colleagues from CNAS, distinguished experts, guests, and all friends, good afternoon. On behalf of the National Communication Commission, NCC, it will be my great honor to be here. I think we can all agree that in this modern time, our lives, work, and ways of communication have all become increasingly reliant on digital systems and networks. Despite the convenience these digital networks provide. They also bring certain security risks and challenges, such as malicious software, sub-attacks, and data breaches. Faced with these challenges, we must continue to gain information, adapt, and become innovators to get in cybersecurity measures to ensure that our information environment can withstand such threats. NCC established the National Communications and Cybersecurity Center, NCC-SC, on November 15th, 2018. This establishment of NCC-SC embodies the concept of cybersecurity as national security and represents a significant achievement in building a joint national security defense system. In June 2019, NCC announced a new law of the Telecommunication Management Act. This law requires public telecommunication networks to adapt telecommunication equipment that meets national security considerations and ICT security standards. From end user devices to cloud services, with the aim of constructing a more trustworthy network environment, ensuring national security and cybersecurity. In addition to legal amendments, in 2020, Taiwan and the United States issued a joint declaration on 5G security, demonstrating the determination of both sides to defend the network security and respond to call for 5G security in the proposal. All domestic mobile telecom operators in Taiwan were included in the US Department of State's list of clean network for 5G, making Taiwan the ideal partner for promoting cybersecurity cooperation. But with the establishment of the Ministry of Digital Affairs, MODA, in August 2022, cybersecurity protection management duties for communication operators, including NCC-SC and related personnel, have been transferred from the NCC to MODA. But the NCC is still very active in cybersecurity protection. Efforts are being made to improve cybersecurity governance with laws that have not been classified as critical infrastructure providers. Currently, we are conducting checks on about 370 such providers within the communication sectors. Our aim is to construct an industry-wide cybersecurity network, enhance defense capabilities of the private sector, integrate internet defense resources, and stress the national cybersecurity environment. Finally, I wish this event great success with fruitful discussion for all participants. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your insights, Mr. Chen, for your leadership on behalf of strengthening cybersecurity in Taiwan. Next, I'd like to introduce our second distinguished speaker, the Deputy Director of the American Institute in Taiwan, Mr. Jeremy Cornforth. Mr. Cornforth is a career member of the senior U.S. Foreign Service, where he's served since 1998. Over his tenure, Mr. Cornforth has served in Jerusalem, Santo Domingo, Mumbai, Tunis, Beirut, all very easy postings, I'm sure. Alongside several postings in Washington, D.C. As someone who had formerly worked at the State Department for a few years, he survived longer than I did, so I credit him with that. Mr. Cornforth assumed the role of Deputy Director of the American Institute in Taiwan in 2021 after serving as Chief of the Consular Section at the U.S. Consulate General in Guangzhou, China. Mr. Cornforth holds a BA in History from Union College and is a distinguished graduate of the National War College, where he earned a Master's of Science in Strategic Studies. He also speaks, as any good diplomat would, Arabic, Hebrew, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. But he's agreed to provide, on my behalf, this presentation in English. So, Deputy Director Cornforth, we welcome your comments and thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me to do it in English. I appreciate it. NCC Chairman Chen Yaoxiang, Center for New American Studies Program Director Vivek Chilakuri, distinguished guests and speakers, good afternoon, Wuan. It's an honor for me to be here with you today, and I want to especially thank CNAS for your leadership role in providing research and analysis that has helped inform our efforts to elevate national security and foreign policy. I also want to thank President Lai Yizhong and the Prospect Foundation for your long commitment to furthering US-Taiwan relations through intellectual debate and educational exchange. Today, I want to focus my remarks on safeguarding businesses and critical infrastructure from cyber attacks, a shared challenge faced by both the United States and Taiwan. At AIT, cybersecurity is truly one of our top collaborative goals with Taiwan because it lies at the nexus of national security and economic security. Malicious cyber activity worldwide is growing in both scale and sophistication as cyber actors adapt their strategies and tactics to disrupt networks, steal intellectual property, and conduct cyber espionage. It is no secret that critical infrastructure and prominent companies in both the United States and Taiwan have been and continue to be targets of cyber hacks, data breaches, and ransomware attacks. Taiwan is both a key node in the global ICT supply chain and an important physical link in the network of undersea telecommunications cables spanning the globe, has also become a test bed for cyber intrusions from advanced actors. As our partners have noted many times, Taiwan is subject to significant cyber threats and foreign malign influence, including a campaign of highly coordinated, multifaceted attacks targeting Taiwan's civic infrastructure, amounting to a potent mix of cyber manipulation and interference. These malicious activities have the goal of not only disrupting our day-to-day life here on Taiwan, but also hollowing out Taiwan's democratic institutions, and they carry the risk of further escalation. The United States also is subject to cyber threats from a variety of state, non-state, and criminal actors. The ransomware attack against the Colonial Pipeline in 2021 resulted in a 6-day shutdown of the pipeline that supplies more than half of all liquid fuel used on the east coast of the United States. Likewise, the SolarWinds attack in 2020, which was attributed to Russian-backed hacker groups, impacted thousands of organizations globally, including many US government entities. I remember that I had no access to email for a few peaceful days, and also triggered large-scale supply chain disruptions. And the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017 targeted Microsoft systems, resulting in billions of dollars in damage to organizations in more than 150 countries. It even caused Taiwan's TSMC to temporarily halt production at several of its facilities. The fact that the United States and Taiwan share this common challenge makes it even more important that we work together as close partners and learn from each other to bolster cyber security, critical infrastructure, and societal resilience. Stability, safety, and security in cyberspace are critical to societal resilience. Understanding this principle, the Biden-Harris administration is taking key measures to prioritize and elevate cybersecurity in the United States and with trusted partners, including Taiwan. Launched in March of 2023, the United States National Cybersecurity Strategy states, "In this decisive decade, the United States will reimagine cyberspace as a tool to achieve our goals in a way that reflects our values: economic security and prosperity, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, trust in our democracy and democratic institutions, and an equitable and diverse society." The United States will continue working with allies and partners, including Taiwan, to counter threats to our digital ecosystem and to build secure, reliable, and trustworthy global supply chains for information and communications technology. As the United States and Taiwan both continue to work to safeguard public and private data and networks from cyber threats, I'm proud of the work that we have already done together. We are working to prevent and investigate cybercrime, to provide capacity building training for Taiwan cyber professionals and policymakers, and to build bridges between US and Taiwan industry, which is a very powerful area for collaboration. Just this last November, we jointly hosted a global cooperation and training framework workshop here in Taipei, focused on human rights in the digital age, that included discussions of how to promote cybersecurity and counter malicious cyber activity. Cyberspace is truly a multi-stakeholder arena, and that is why the United States Department of Commerce is also prioritizing cybersecurity through private sector engagement by organizing a series of export promotion events here in Taiwan that will introduce innovative US cybersecurity solutions to the market. Colleagues from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, commonly known as NIST, recently updated their widely adopted cybersecurity framework. Version 2.0 of the framework provides guidance to industry, government agencies, and other organizations on how to manage cybersecurity risk. This voluntary framework, which is available publicly for anyone who wishes to adopt it, is not just for large-scale critical infrastructure providers. Organizations of all size and types throughout the world can use the framework to better understand, assess, prioritize, and communicate their cybersecurity efforts. I've actually personally read the framework. I think it's really amazing in its ability to handle complicated technical issues and also be understandable to non-experts at the same time. Just as in the United States, I believe that here in Taiwan, robust industry engagement will be essential to ensuring that the island's cyber policies reflect the full expertise of all experts on Taiwan and across cyberspace. Private industry possesses many of the most advanced capabilities and tools to address and mitigate cyber risks, as well as firsthand experience protecting public and private networks, including critical infrastructure. Taiwan can leverage all of these capabilities by involving private industry in the policymaking process, which will further ensure that industry players are fully committed to cyber policies once they are put into effect. In this way, Taiwan can best enhance its society's cybersecurity resilience and engage its entire society. We all know that cybersecurity cannot be accomplished through government intervention alone. Cooperation between the public and private sectors is also a key recommendation from the bipartisan U.S. Congressional Cyberspace Solarium Commission. We appreciate the work of companies researching vulnerabilities, developing new technologies, and deploying modern solutions to address them. Cybersecurity is a shared challenge that requires a whole-of-society approach. And addressing the cyber threat will require efforts from all of us who have a stake in this issue, including companies, non-governmental organizations, educational institutions, the media, and perhaps most significantly, an active and informed public. It is equally critical for multiple stakeholders to continue to find ways to share information, best practices, and lessons learned. Civil society and the academic community are well placed to help identify and expose trends and to offer technical expertise on the ever-evolving methods used by hostile actors. And I know from firsthand experience, Taiwan has many resources in that space, which is great. To that end, the United States will continue to support efforts to strengthen civil society and promote cyber literacy in Taiwan, across the Indo-Pacific, and beyond. Through these global efforts, we can effectively raise public consciousness and awareness about cyber threats. Given these trends, We must continue to collaborate as partners to bolster resilience and to counter cyber attacks. We must support one another because that is what partners do. We work together to confront shared challenges and identify solutions. And the United States and we at AIT look forward to collaborating with Taiwan in this spirit of partnership. Taiwan has demonstrated time and again that it is a reliable partner and a force for good in the world. I'm proud to join today's event to expand international cooperation in this crucial area and share more about what the United States is doing to contribute. Taiwan is indeed, as we so often say, a model democracy. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you all today.
Thank you, Deputy Director Cornforth, for those terrific remarks, and to both of our distinguished speakers. I think it's clear that there is a complex, urgent, and developing agenda on cybersecurity bilaterally between the United States and Taiwan and also across the region. The cybersecurity agenda is complicated for so many reasons. It's not only technically complicated and developing, but there isn't a government agency, there's not a business, there's not a family that is not implicated by the cybersecurity threats and is not involved by extension in the cybersecurity response. And I think Taiwan and the United States both have so much to learn from each other in terms of not just facing common threats, but having common attributes as technologically forward economies and active democracies that have endured disinformation time and again. So I appreciate the remarks from both of our speakers this morning, and now we're going to be moving into the second phase of our event this afternoon, which is a moderated discussion with experts. And we're lucky to have a terrific moderator for our discussion this afternoon, Bethany Allen Ebrahimian. Bethany was most recently the China reporter for Axios. And for those who don't know, Axios is well known in Washington, D.C. It's feared by some elected officials in Washington, D.C. for its excellent reporting. It's a leading political and policy outlet in America. And before joining Axios, Bethany served as a lead reporter for the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists China Cables Project, which was a major leak of classified Chinese government documents that revealed the inner workings of mass internment camps in Xinjiang. Bethany is a highly sought-after speaker, so we're lucky to have her here this afternoon. And she's spoken at the Council on Foreign Relations, the Asia Society, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, and elsewhere. Previously, Bethany was a staff editor and contributing reporter at Foreign Policy magazine, where she wrote investigations and regular analysis on China, and her writing has appeared in several prominent outlets in the U.S. and around the world, including the New York Times and the Washington Post. And perhaps her most well-known accomplishment among many is that she's the author of a book called Beijing Rules: How China Weaponized Its Economy to Confront the World, which the Financial Times called one of its best business books of 2023. So without any further ado, Bethany, happy to pass it on to you. The floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
It's on. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be with you today. Thank you for that kind introduction. I have, on several occasions over the past several years, spoken at or moderated panels with the Center for New American Security, and really admire this organization's work. And I'm just very pleased also to be here also with the Prospect Foundation, one of the most prominent organizations, think tanks in Taiwan. So really pleased to be here today. And I would like to introduce our distinguished panelists. I'll just pull their bios up right here. And first, right here on my right is Gary Korn. And Professor Gary Korn is the director of the Technology, Law, and Security program and an adjunct professor of cyber and national security law and the law of armed conflict. He is currently at Georgetown, or George Washington, sorry. American University. Sorry about that. American University in Washington, D.C. A recognized expert on the intersection of cyber and national security law and policy, Professor Korn joined TLS after serving 26 years on active duty in the U.S. Army as a military attorney, practicing national security law at the highest levels within the Department of Defense. His final 5 years, he served as the staff judge advocate and general counsel to U.S. Cyber Command. And next we have with us Andy Wood, who is the Asia Regional Managing Director for Defense and Intelligence at Microsoft. Welcome. And finally, we have also with us Ethan Tu, who is the founder of AI Labs and the former principal development manager at Microsoft. Ethan is well known as the founder of PTT, which is a BBS platform, I believe, which has grown into one of Taiwan's most influential online forums since its launch in 1995. So I will start with some general questions and then dive into some more specific topics. Just speaking very generally, and I will give all three panelists the opportunity to address this question. Why does cybersecurity matter to the future of the Indo-Pacific? And for this question, we'll just go along, Gary, Andy, and Ethan.
Okay, that's an easy question. I mean, I think the clear answer, and it's not just for the Indo-Pacific region, I think it's for the world generally. Everything we do now is digitally interconnected, and we are dependent in so many ways on the global information and telecommunications technology structure, devices, et cetera. And so being able to rely on this environment that we have created that is so critical to everybody's daily lives matters. And we saw this in 2007 in Estonia, when a nation that had done an amazing transformation to being very digitally connected, all government services, et cetera, suffered a pretty extensive and debilitating cyber operation from Russia, and how that can impact a society. And we've seen it over and over again. So I think just it is a critical component of our lives. And like any other critical component of our lives, we want to know that we can have security and reliability on those things.
To bring it back down a level, I think to make it sort of more specific to the Indo-Pacific, all of Gary's comments are absolutely spot on, but as we think regionally focused, Indo-Pacific is the global epicenter of manufacturing, global supply chains, and has got the world's most rapidly growing economies. For me, that just creates this beautiful target if I was a threat actor. And so I believe, particularly to this region, it's vitally important that we try and actually uplift the maturity and capability, not only across public sector organizations, but commercial organizations, through the education system, the whole works, because effectively, as Gary said, this is now global, and everything being so interconnected, we have no choice but to, with the ever-increasing threat landscape that we face.
I actually I was invited by ICSP to have a talk in Washington, D.C. Later this month in AI Expert. The reason he asked me to give a talk is because, according to my previous discussion with ICSP, they just tell me United States is not scared enough to know what's happening in Asia. So Indo-Pacific is actually at the front line of the information war. You see, there are a lot of democracy country around in Indo-Pacific. However, we are deeply influenced by the artificial intelligence and also all the communication network. There's a sharp power. It's leveraging this social media, leveraging this communication tool to weaponize the sharp power to try to influence the democracy in Taiwan. So take Taiwan for example. During our election last year, I would say cybersecurity layer has three levels. One is the connectivity level, critical connectivity level. Taiwan sea cable from Taiwan to Mazu was cut 3 times last year. Second things, the second level of the cybersecurity is information security. The information security, like Moda just mentioned, the NCC just mentioned, there are a lot of information attack in Taiwan. Take PTT for example. The social media is running under open source nonprofit organization in Taiwan. Last year, we ever tell our users, if your account got hacked, tell the police. For 1 week, thousands reports to the police. So that's such a lot of amount. And those accounts, they actually being used to post the political influence, try to broadcast the favoring China's the narratives in our social media. So that's a third level of cybersecurity. So you can imagine in the future, I worked for Microsoft for 11 years. I see the power of the artificial intelligence. That was also the reason I come back to Taiwan and founded Taiwan AI Lab. I see artificial intelligence now is serving for two purposes. One is for the government, like Russia and China, and one is for the profit, the big tech company. And for Taiwan, we are sacrificed, which means if we don't do the trustworthy, responsible AI technology, this artificial intelligence will turn into a tool to going against all countries' democracy that we can already observe. So you can imagine in the future, the generative AI might previously actually work with the ChatGPT team for the, with OpenAI for the ChatGPT. So we release Cortana, we release large language model, we release ChatGPT. In the future, you can just imagine on the social media, the majority of the article is actually generated. If you don't have any regulation against the ethical use of the artificial intelligence, the majority of the accounts, just I mentioned, the PTT, are fake accounts. And those accounts are created for a purpose. So through 1 year of observation by Taiwan AI Lab, in year 2023, we see billions of activities. There are more than 48,000 of the battlefields. This actually influenced by those troll accounts. Those are not real user accounts. Try to attack Taiwan's user. If you have different opinion, they will attack you, those accounts. And if there's any support, for example, Joe Biden ever said, if China, if Taiwan is being invaded, then United States will support Taiwan. This kind of narrative on our Taiwan social media, it changed into the United States will support Taiwan to develop bioweapon in April 2023. And we see this kind of narrative on social media once and once again. It's actually influence how people think in Taiwan. Therefore, in these three levels, Taiwan is at front line. We are under attack. And we want to tell people how this authority is doing, which kind of techniques is being attacked in Taiwan. And Taiwan AI Lab, we are using a trustworthy and responsible way to measure the impact, to tell people what's happening. And I think that's also the reason Taiwan is a very good global citizen in the democracy, and we are a good global citizen. Like we do the clean network, we do the trustworthy technology, and we embrace the open source and the democracies. And so I would say in Taiwan, in Indo-Pacific, we are at the front line. We observe what's happening, and now can help the global to think what can help, what Taiwan can help, and also how we can help Taiwan. Thank you.
This question is for anyone with opinions on it. what are Taiwan's greatest strengths when it comes to cybersecurity at this time, and what are its greatest vulnerabilities? I'll leave that open.
I'll take a stab at this one. Look, I think the greatest strength is its willingness and awareness that it can't tackle the problem on its own. And it actually is going to take a not only whole of nation, but whole of partners approach. So working with allied nations, working with industry, working with private sector organizations to tackle what is an ever-growing and increasing problem. And I think that acknowledgement could be viewed as both, the weakness of going it alone represents that risk that you face, but then saying, okay, well, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to work together to actually tackle this, I think is then also pivots to be its greatest strength.
I think the one of the great strengths of Taiwan is because Taiwan is very good in the development of artificial intelligence hardware. Therefore, for the technology in terms to counter the technology's attack, we do have this computing power, we have this talent. And there's another strength is, for example, the software talents in Taiwan. Unlike United States, we are more open source, we are more cloud computing, which means we can contribute our power. Like Taiwan AI Lab, we are non-profit, non-government organization. We can work together as a artificial intelligence group, not for the profit, not for the government, but we can work on the problem to resolve the problem. Like for the government NIRO, for example, is a social science school. It's actually working together by the best computer science engineer in Taiwan, try to solve the government's issue without carrying any profitability. So I would say that's the strength. And what is a vulnerability? I would say the strength is our government is small, but it's also our vulnerability, which means whenever we see any threat, like in a cybersecurity, for example, if we see a hacker attack, we could get a kind of on PTT. For Taiwan, it's very difficult to drill into the issue because after we trace the IP address, if that go to foreign government, it's very difficult to drill in. And a lot of we found a lot of attack is actually leverage China manufactured routers. They have a VPN backdoor open on the device. But if you drill into that router device, they have an IP address from out of Taiwan, then we have no control. So we don't have the power like NCC can set out the regulation, but we have the hesitation to set any regulation that against the big tech company or against any foreign company, because Taiwan at the same time we also want to welcome all the company invest in Taiwan. So the beauty is we the technical company in Taiwan, we can work together to build out the solution to secure our democracy. The vulnerability is we know the issue, we measure the issue, we tell people to understand the issue, but usually Taiwan cannot resolve the issue by ourselves. We usually follow, because we are a democracy country, we usually follow the regulation in United States or European Union. Yeah.
And I would just say that I think one of the main strengths is directly related to the main vulnerability. And I've seen that now in the discussions we've had while we've been here, the vulnerability being at the very front line of cyber threats and a very capable and aggressive cyber actor coming against you. But that is building the data set, the knowledge base to be able to deal with that. There's nothing that sharpens your skills better than actually operating versus thinking about things hypothetically. So it might be better that you didn't have to learn that way, but it is definitely what I'm seeing in my discussions here, a strength and something that is critical to sharing with other partners outward.
Changing tack slightly, I have a question quite specifically for Gary based on his expertise in law. What are some of the emerging issues in the national security law space that U.S. partners and allies should be aware of when it comes to these emerging threats in cybersecurity?
It's a great question. It's a complex question. We've observed, I would say, since around 2012, a growing understanding among states about how international law applies and regulates state behavior in cyberspace. That's still an evolving area. We're up to 30 some odd states now that have issued national positions, et cetera. But I think we've been touching on one area that is extremely difficult. Most of those discussions have focused on what I would describe as the cyber effects aspect of cyberspace, the disruptive actions, actions against the confidentiality, availability, integrity of information and systems. We seem to have, in those discussions, lost sight of traditional influence operations that are now conducted at scale and speed because of the technology. And how we manage that and regulate that is something that is emerging and is quite a challenge area, but one that's very important to wrap our heads around and deal with these threats. And I would say, just related to that, the various efforts across different aspects of internet governance broadly, and do we want this system of systems to operate and reflect our values as nations and as partner nations, compared to some of the efforts to shape this environment to support more authoritarian objectives.
Can I just follow up? You said there seems that some maybe have lost sight of traditional influence operations. What do you mean by that specifically?
I'll certainly speak to my observation and experience within the U.S. system. I will say, when I teach this, their influence operations are not new. These have been going on since states have been engaging with each other. You can look at things like the Russian KGB with active measures operations, something that was called Operation Infection back in the 80s, that was a complete disinformation campaign against the United States around the AIDS virus. What it took a long time, effort, seasoning, et cetera, to achieve success in today's environment happens instantaneously, right? And so we focused very much in the cyber realm, where we started talking about cybersecurity, was worrying about the security of our systems, right? Defending against disruptive effects. We started to see in the 2016 election in the US that perhaps of equal, if not greater threat, is just the influence operations that are leveraging the technology as it's designed to be used, but to nefarious purpose.
Thank you. And I think that's a perfect jumping off point to talk about elections. 2024 has been called the year of elections. There's more than 50 countries going to the polls this year. Taiwan already has. And there is perhaps an unprecedented, worry and what we've seen reality of attacks on the integrity of those elections. And Microsoft Threat Intelligence just issued a report a couple of weeks ago noting that some of the AI-generated content that was spread by China-backed actors in Taiwan was the first time that they have seen China try to use AI to influence elections. What is Taiwan doing to combat disinformation and protect its democratic institutions in the face of this? And what should other countries who are conducting elections this year, what can they learn from Taiwan?
Don't really feel it's my place to say what Taiwan is actually doing. However, what I can do is speak to some of the things that I know have been available and have been leveraged in this particular field. And I'll start with just an extension of what Gary just spoke to with regards to the rapid uptick of influence operations, what we're seeing. So Microsoft has two distinct businesses that we've built internally to specialize in this space. One is Mystic, which is the threat intelligence center, which effectively do the threat monitoring over our entire network footprint, about 8 trillion signals per day that they're actually monitoring with the use of and support of AI and other tools. And then on the other side, we have the Microsoft Threat Analytics Center, which specializes in trying to detect and monitor influence operations and misinformation. And one of the things that we've sort of witnessed over the last few years is where we've actually detected the uptick in the rise of influence operations has usually proceeded right to the point of then a major cyber event. Particularly where we've identified it from nation state actors, you can actually see that they start their campaigns through the misinformation and influence operations and then do what is effectively the digital equivalent of a kinetic attack on a system or a particular government agency or a public entity. And I think it's when you actually start to look at the two in comparison is then when you really start to get some good solid capability in your toolkit, particularly from a nation level, to be able to rapidly identify where the next event may occur and take action before it actually occurs, or improve your decision advantage to then mitigate that in the quickest time possible. Now, I know Taiwan leverages some of these capabilities themselves through government security programs, as other nations do at the moment, and I think that fundamentally comes down to the core of the issue is adopting and taking on every additional capability that they possibly can to counteract these threats, whether it be through cyber attacks, whether it be through influence operations, and actually looking at that holistically. The fact that elections themselves, they are just a marquee event for these types of campaigns.
Yeah. I won't say United States learn from Taiwan, but I would say in Taiwan, because we are at the finance, we are dealing with this issue because we want to sustain our democracy. So our experience we can share to Microsoft, and I know Microsoft's great team because I work for Microsoft for 11 years. And I know Ken Swart, he is the lead of the Microsoft Threat. So from my understanding, Microsoft Threat in the past is more focused on the connectivity security or the information security instead of the cognitive security. So I would say cognitive security is a new thing, although according to Gary, it's probably not a new technique in terms of foreign influence of the information manipulation. But because of the new technology, right now we have a social media, right now we have AI, so it can easily create a lot of kind to influence a lot of people to change their thinking just before the voting. So it actually impact the election security for all the democratic countries, including United States and Taiwan. And I would say Taiwan because we are heavily involved building a resilience in our society in order to secure our election. Therefore, what happened here, because social media can and the same technology can be used all around the world. So the United States can know Taiwan's experience and what kind of measure should be taken in United States. And I just mentioned Taiwan is actually pretty weak and setting up the regulation because all these companies, international company, we have no leverage point at a lot of times. But if our experience will work with United States, then United States can look into the experience in Taiwan and think about how to deal with this kind of issue. I can take one thing, for example, the TikTok. TikTok is actually a very interesting topic. So 2023, we look into this TikTok platform. We can, using our artificial intelligence to measure the bias of this platform. For example, this TikTok platform, we have 4 presidential candidates in Taiwan. This TikTok platform, pretty average, is promoting 1 presidential candidate of these 4. And both the KNT, DPT's presidential candidate and this platform is being attacked heavily, which means through our democracy, our party elect candidate, this platform is trying to influence how people think in Taiwan compared to other social media. And even after we see recent regulation in the United States, the senator in the United States talking about the TikTok issue, we also see the information manipulation on the TikTok. It's actually asking the young generation in the United States to call your senator, go against this vote, and also ask the young generation and tell them if you don't go against this bill, you might get caught by the police because this bill is going to pass. And the reason United States want to pass this bill because you can make easy money on the TikTok, and they want to force you to do some traditional works that is not for the young generation. So we can see this kind of narrative is being manipulated on this social media platform. So I would say with the methodology we do, with the experience we have, we can build out and ensure our report. For example, the TikTok related information manipulation we just released last month, because we feel very interested. We see United States start to setting up a regulation against TikTok. Then you see this information manipulation. At this time, it becomes the evidence. This social media platform can influence how people think in United States, just like the way it influences how people think in Taiwan. So I would say Taiwan experience, we can see how the following information manipulation happen in Taiwan. I would say one again will also happen in other countries. Take the running out of toilet paper, for example. During the COVID-19, there was an information manipulation on Taiwan social media. Yeah. And saying if you don't buy toilet paper right now, then you will not able to buy toilet paper in the future. And all the people in Taiwan just rush into the store and buy all the toilet paper. The same information manipulation happened in Taiwan first, then Japan, then Australia. Then in March 2020, we see the same information manipulation happen in United States. And we also see the information manipulation, for example, before Russia invaded Ukraine. There's the major narrative that's in the information manipulation is saying Ukraine is doing genocide. This same narrative, in September 27, we also see this narrative. 2023, we also see this narrative happen before Hamas attacked Israel. It's saying Israel is doing the genocide. So we can see the signal that's happened in Taiwan, also happened in Ukraine, also happened in Israel. So I would say the same strategy of information manipulation is not success in Taiwan. It will definitely be used in other places. Therefore, it will be good to look into Taiwan's experience, and at the same time, we can forecast what will be used in other countries. Yeah, thank you.
I'll have one more question and then I'll open it up to audience questions. So please prepare questions if you have anything that you wish to ask. How has the war in Ukraine changed the cyber threat environment in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, I would say that it is a case study of how both cyber and information operations can be leveraged as part of a broader campaign of coercion or warfare. And we have to be paying attention to that. There's been lots of discussion about the actual impacts from Russia's cyber operations, but they've been relentless. They did have effect. The Ukrainians were able to mitigate that to a large degree, and there's lessons to be had there about how do you prepare and build resiliency. But it is unquestionable that states will leverage this capacity, this capability and capacity for means of warfare, for means of coercive activities, adversarial activities going forward, and that's very pertinent to everything that's happening here. And I think from at least my vantage point, China has learned lessons. They're paying very close attention to what's gone right and what's gone wrong, and to learn from those lessons and incorporate them into their toolkit here.
What are some of those lessons you think that China may have learned?
Well, I think for one, it's what targets you focus on and how to leverage those targets, and how to synchronize that with other operations. So I think that's one of the areas where maybe the decision process in Russia moved faster than the military was able to plan and follow and execute. It is a sophisticated game in cyber, and when you're talking about military operations, how those fit into your broader operations, the timing and the tempo, et cetera. But I think you can see also from what has been discovered recently with the Volt Typhoon example and others, that pre-positioning yourself in critical infrastructure and systems that will be effective at disrupting your adversary's ability to respond and react to something is a lesson that they've taken away and they're working on.
I'm mindful it's a public event, so without going into a specific, one of the lessons that we've witnessed from our end and actually supporting the government in Ukraine during the conflict is seeing how well integrated the influence operations, the cyber attacks have been brought into traditional kinetic warfare, particularly against critical infrastructure targets. And I think that's probably a lesson that all sides actually need to take into account, that is the way that the thought processes are working, and that's the thought process that we need to take on in order to better defend that infrastructure and those critical capabilities for nations, particularly in time of conflict. Because if successful, they can prove devastating. So it's no longer about protecting just physical targets, it's no longer just about protecting your information systems, and it's no longer just protecting the integrity of information and communication out to the public sphere. It's all three, and it's all three at once.
Till today, the Ukraine-related information manipulation right now is still contributing to the majority of the volume and the social media we can observe in Taiwan. So, during the Russia-Ukraine war, we actually learned the information security, just like I also echoed Andy just mentioned. Not only the physical connectivity security, not only the data information security, the connected security is one of the major pieces right before and after Russia-Ukraine war. So before the Russia-Ukraine war, we actually funded, take a Twitter, for example, um, right before Russia invaded Ukraine, 1 of 10 accounts on the Twitter, if not ever talk about Ukraine, is actually trying to disseminate pro-Russia's narratives. And last week, actually called those as connected accounts. They are telling people Ukraine is doing genocide, Ukraine leader run out of Ukraine, fake news, and also they are telling people the Ukrainian government is corrupt. They just are trying to ask other country to donate money. Till today, we still see this kind of narrative influencing Taiwanese people. So those information manipulation in English and Twitter, we can also observe those narratives happen in PTT and those collaborative accounts. And they also use the line, the private chat line group, try to influence our father and our young generation, telling people, okay, Ukraine is not a good government. United States is trying to sell in weapons to Taiwan, and also saying Japan is dumping nuclear wastewater to Taiwan. And if Taiwan try to make friendship with Japan, make friendship with India, they also tell Taiwanese people, oh, India people will rape Taiwanese women. Those kind of narratives we saw by those troll account group trying to influence how people think in Taiwan in a good I would say a lot of volume. And through this Russia-Ukraine war, we also see this information manipulation. They actually try to not only influence how people think about Ukraine, they also try to lead the conflict in Taiwan and United States. For example, they will leverage the Russia-Ukraine war and blame is because of Biden, blah, 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 and that's a wrong decision, and because of United States. So they are trying to cause people on the social media feel bad against United States and feel bad against United States policy. So I would say that's part also educate Taiwan. In order to counter those narratives, the best thing is discourse. Because we cannot censor, Taiwan is also a freedom of speech place, we cannot censor those content. Then the better way to do, also what we did in Taiwan LA, we work closely with the academic research group in the university, and also we work closely with the media company in Taiwan. We discuss how this troll account grew. They are disputing which kind of narrative. They are trying to destroy the trust between the country. They are trying to destroy the trust through your Taiwan's administration and United States administration. So I think we start learn from Russia-Ukraine war, then we also learn from Hamas Israel's attack, and we also secure our democracies by showing what we observe in Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to now open up to questions from the audience. So please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. And if you can introduce yourself. Yes, right here.
Thank you to the panel for some fantastic insights. My name's Jonathan Beasley from Microsoft, our global team. And whilst this question is directed to Andy, I would really appreciate any of your other observations, because Gary, you mentioned, and same, we spoke of critical infrastructure, we spoke of data, and we also spoke or made mention of that in light of cybersecurity. We've spoken about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and what I'd like to get your insights on are, given critical infrastructure, given the importance of data, in a cybersecurity environment where one nation is attacked by another, what are your thoughts on cloud infrastructure versus hard on-premise infrastructure for the protection of your most sensitive data? Thank you. Andy, I know the answer to this, but
Thanks,
yeah.
John. For those who don't, John is actually in my team. He's our global lead for intelligence within Microsoft. But look, I mean, for who I work with, even before I joined Microsoft, my previous role was a Deputy Director General in Government Western Australia, and I was charged with leading the implementation of the state's digital strategy, which effectively was moving away from owner-operators of infrastructure to consumers of digital services. So I've fundamentally had a belief around the benefits and value of hyperscale infrastructure as opposed to owning your own. With that aside, I'll use a very specific example from the war in Ukraine. Some of the very first early targets, the Russian attacks on the critical infrastructure of the Ukraine government were its owned data centers. And the reasons that we believe that these were the first ones to attack, obviously, was to erase public records of things such as land ownership. So when there's an invader and you're taking sovereign land away from those that you're attacking, if you can eradicate the records of land ownership, it then becomes much simpler to rewrite your own history of that. Now, those are very static targets, which were easily identified and known well before the first shots were fired. But what we and others like us were able to do working with the government of Ukraine within a matter of, I think, 2 weeks, was effectively uplift their entire physical IT infrastructure footprint to hyperscale and distribute that over multiple data centers throughout Europe and globally. Now, from a cyber threat protection, what does that actually do? Well, it immediately removed immediate target opportunity within their sovereign borders. Because if you don't know where that data is specifically held, how are you going to actually attack and eradicate it? So that's one. The second is, and this doesn't, it can be, you look at it from a company perspective, look at it from a government perspective. Hyperscale providers like Microsoft invest billions of dollars every year in improving the security posturing of the products and services that we provide. We have to, given the sheer size and scale of what we actually provide, because one simple breach isn't just something that affects Microsoft. It affects governments globally, it affects private sector organizations globally, and all of the critical infrastructure, whether it be from health, education, transport, utilities, mining, energy, the whole works. And so the risk of us not doing that effectively just becomes something too much to actually be palatable for any government or organisation. Governments typically don't have that same ability to invest and build innovation into their own security products and services. So being able to leverage the work and investments being made from the likes of Microsoft, the likes of industry operators, just becomes a no-brainer because it becomes a speed of ability, the speed of which you can adapt new innovations, the speed that you can stay ahead of your adversaries, the speed of which when a threat or a vulnerability becomes known to then quickly rectify that to mitigate any potential damage. That for me is the fundamental value add of hyperscale versus on-premise.
It's hard to argue with success, right? I mean, it certainly helped in the Ukraine situation, and there were some Herculean efforts, that the Ukrainians had to go through to change law to enable that rapid shift that you described. I think ultimately there's, many of the things you described about the security benefits that come with that, et cetera. I would say that's what the focus should be on planning. How do you best secure your data against the likely scenarios that you anticipate? And how do you build in resiliency for that? I do think that some of that, though, is very adversary dependent, and there were a number of inhibitors for, I'd say, Russia not wanting escalation, et cetera. Just moving data to another location doesn't necessarily completely immunize it from an adversary's reach, depending on how they operate and what their risk calculations are. So I think you have to factor all that in thinking about how you best secure yourself and your data and provide for the resiliency and flexibility to respond in a contingency.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, my name is D.T. Lee from Academia Sinica. And we all know that the advancement of AI technology has generated a lot of talks. And we know that AI can do good as well as do evil. And so do social media. I was wondering whether or not what should we do, whether or not to call for a responsible social platform. This question to all the panelists. And the second question I have maybe to Ethan. You talked about internet trolls or the fake accounts that help spread misinformation or disinformation or manipulate public opinion. I was wondering whether or not how does the government, or Taiwan government in particular, or Taiwan government do in order to fight against this type of trolls and help the fight against this manipulation of public trust. Thank you.
I think number one question is talk about the code of ethics of the social media. I think 2 weeks ago I talked with I think Eric Smith also have a talk in Columbia University in New York. They are talking about Section 230. The reason why social media is become a tool for this China and Russia, because Section 230. There are two labels protect this social media. Below the social media, the ISP, like Zhonghua Telecom and also the board director of Zhonghua Telecom, we have like a net neutrality, which means we cannot like China, they can disallow which is website and allow which website to go on top of this ISP. So the net neutrality actually protect this social media, have a internet access. And on top of this social media, there is Section 230. Section 230 also protect the social media. They are not responsible for the content on top of this social media. I would say in the past, it is the purpose of Section 230 is you want to protect the freedom of speech. However, right now we are protecting the freedom of information manipulation, not including the fraud, not including the foreign government's dissemination of false information. And what we can observe in the future with the generative AI, like if we don't control the spam when we have email, then the majority of email in your mailbox will become spam. If we don't control the good code of ethics of using the artificial intelligence, the majority of the information you observe on the social media is generated by AI, and for sure. And the majority of the information being generated will be sponsored by the fraud, by the foreign government. That is for sure, because we already observe there's a big business in Taiwan, particularly. If you can help the big government outside Taiwan to disseminate those information, you can make money. Not including all the YouTubers in Taiwan. If you can do the campaign, that is, you pretend you are neutral, but you say some narrative, echoing China, then you will be dominated. So we already see this financial benefit. Like for the democratic country like Taiwan, we are not able to sponsor those generative AI. We are not able to sponsor those usage of the new technology and also the YouTuber adopting those new technology. If we don't regulate it, for sure it will be misused. And we already see the impact in Taiwan. So I would say, yes, first thing, we should remove Section 230. In United States, for Section 230, we should think about protecting freedom of speech instead of protecting the fraud and protecting the information manipulation from the foreign country. So that's number one thing we need to do. The number two thing we need to do is even we remove Section 230, the artificial intelligence and the social media platform with its own bias, it can also bigly influence how people think in a democracy country like Taiwan. Like I mentioned, in Taiwan, there's a pretty obvious preference of the TikTok platform is promoting which candidate. We can think about this way. If there's no transparency, allowing third party to measure these platforms' algorithm, then the social media platform can help your country to elect your president. That's what we already know. Because they can adjust the algorithm, promote which candidate, target which group of user to tell those candidate is doing something that actually those group of people will feel bad. So they can do this kind of information manipulation easily. And I was in Washington, D.C. talk with the senator over there. For example, they are talking about Project Texas. I would say Project Texas is useless because once you control whoever train the algorithm, and you can control the algorithm itself, it doesn't matter the data is stored in United States or in China, because using the federated learning technology, like what we do in Taiwan, the data stored in United States, but I use the people have a different purpose and different preference to train the AI algorithm. It can still using those data to train a very targeting algorithm to target your people to change their users' behavior and change users' preference. So if you want to, if United States want to have more discussion, what we observe in Taiwan, we more welcome to share our experience. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if I might, I share Ethan's concerns about what I would describe as a relatively polluted information environment that we have today. And this goes back to the question you asked me earlier about where are some of the frontline key issues. This is one of them. But I would urge some caution because Section 230 is very, very specific and esoteric to the United States, and it does provide a degree of protection for the social media platforms. And there's a fair debate as to whether it has outlived its utility and applicability to a business model now that relies on algorithmic recommendations and et cetera. But it is really just a frontline Band-Aid. Even if you took 230 away, the First Amendment questions, the freedom of expression questions, would still present an extremely high barrier, at least in the US system, to being able to succeed in legal actions against the social media platforms. And that is sort of one of the key challenge areas. We've seen countries take these arguments and abuse them with fake news laws and efforts at censorship. And I think to your earlier point about discourse is really the front line of this challenge, and digital literacy and education of your population. We're also right now struggling with a case that is sitting before our Supreme Court where people challenge decisions of the platforms to moderate information during COVID. And the challenge is that an appellate court said that the White House and the U.S. government put too much pressure on the platforms to take action. And that has had a real chilling effect right now on government to platform discussions about what is harmful or not harmful information coursing across the social media platforms. But I would say, first and foremost, this has to be about trying to educate people to be critical thinkers, to engage with this information, et cetera. And I think one of the real challenge points within that is the question of anonymity, right? Because that is the key modus operandi for successful influence operations. There's small segments of any society that will listen to anybody. But I know for me, for example, if I'm hearing suggestions from Vladimir Putin, I don't give them a lot of weight. That's me personally. But if I don't know that it's coming from Vladimir Putin and I think it's coming from a civil society group in the United States, I treat it differently. The provenance of that information is almost more important in working our way through this than the information itself. And that's another very challenging question legally. But I think, again, education and trying to get people to dig deeper about what they're seeing and understanding and hearing and where that's likely coming from is important. And I do think there's responsibility on the platforms to begin to take that on.
I'll need to wrap it up now. We've come to the end of our time. Please join me in thanking once again our distinguished panelists.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen Ibrahimian, for moderating this panel, and thanks to the speakers. You may now please to return to your seats. Thank you all for your participation. Now we are about to reach the end of the CNAS-Prospect Foundation Cybersecurity event. For now, I would like to invite Mr. Jacob Stokes, Senior Fellow for the Indo-Pacific Security Program at CNAS, to deliver his closing remarks. Please.
Well, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Jacob Stokes. I'm a Senior Fellow in the Indo-Pacific Security Program at CNAS in Washington, D.C. This has just really been a fantastic discussion, both what we saw here and the discussion earlier today. And I think we'll all really leave here much more knowledgeable about these issues than we were when we arrived in the morning, but also much more clear-eyed about the challenges we face and the vital importance of deeper US-Taiwan partnership to meet challenges in the cybersecurity realm. And knowing also that we have a chance to seize new opportunities offered by AI and other emerging technologies. And we know our authoritarian competitors, particularly in Beijing, are working quite hard to get there first. Specifically, over the course of the day, we've identified opportunities to learn from each other's experiences in Taiwan, in the United States, and elsewhere, to work together more closely on a bilateral basis, and also how to join with other countries to improve the cybersecurity landscape around the world. It's not an isolated issue. And to make it more safe and secure in cyberspace, while also ensuring that cyberspace remains dynamic, innovative, and also, most importantly, I would argue, supportive of democracy. So we have really a full agenda for the future. On behalf of the CNAS team, I'd like to say thank you to Chairman Chen and also Deputy Director Cornforth for their insightful official remarks. I also want to extend our appreciation to the speakers, Ethan, Gary, and Andy, for providing us with such a rich conversation that was expertly moderated by Bethany. Thank you. And thanks finally and especially to our friends at the Prospect Foundation, led by Chairman Chen and President Lai, for an incredible collaborative effort in putting on this event. We truly value the partnership you have with CNAS and we have together, which is now stretched over a period of multiple years, and we hope it will continue far into the future. So finally, thank you to CNAS's corporate sponsors at Microsoft for supporting our work on these critical issues and elsewhere across the program. So thanks again, and with that, let me turn it over to Yicheng Lai.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes, for the remarks. Now let's welcome President of the Prospect Foundation, Dr. Lai Yizhong, to deliver his closing remarks. Dr. Lai, please.
Thank you. I will not add too much about what already been said by the Jacob and those excellent remarks. First of all, just like to say that the cybersecurity is an issue that Prospect Foundation, despite what we have been engaging in security affairs, is still a very relatively new and realm for us, so that we appreciate for the opportunity that the CNAS offered to us for us to learn and explore this area. And second, just by listening all the remarks from the early morning until just now, that we found out that we could see the kind of cyber security development that evolved so much more. Like in year 2016, we were witnessing about the Cambridge Analytica, in which the basically that's an algorithm that targeted the information development, how that influenced the election. But now we are talking about how the AI-generated realities that started to affect the people's perception. So we are not talking. We are not way beyond the what was happening in year 2016, and that was a very scary thought, especially. So that in addition to the opportunity that it presented, we are also facing a much more complicated environment that needs to be dealt collaboratively. And finally, I just said that in terms of the Indo-Pacific security environment, we also witnessed there's as a war on the Ukraine that resulted it. We are not just facing in Taiwan, for example, facing the threat by China in the cyber realm, but also the much more collaboration between China and other countries, including Russia. That's what we witness in Taiwan as we are moving forward. So that without further ado, and I know that all of you have a busy day, or whether you come in this afternoon, you wanted to take something and talking to those speakers, I will not get in the way. But just on behalf of the Prospect Foundation, I thank the CNAS for the wonderful opportunity, and also the speakers for their time and the insight they offered to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lai, for your remarks. This is the end of the CNAS-Prospect Foundation Cybersecurity event. The event has been a great success. Thank you once again for your participation and valuable insights. We wish you a wonderful day. Thank you very much.